All right, let's just jump right in. For more than a decade now, GitHub has been, the absolute center of the software universe. It's where all the code lives, it's where open source happens, and it's where over 100 million developers, literally, have built their entire careers. It's a fortress, for sure. But here's the thing. What if that fortress has secretly become a prison?
And that is the huge paradox we're going to tear down today. You see, GitHub's relentless, laser focus on developers, that's what made it so successful. But that exact same success has created this massive, hidden tax on the entire process of actually building stuff, a tax that's finally coming due. And it opens up this strategic vulnerability that could totally define its next 10 years.
So to really get how we ended up here, we've got to rewind the clock. Let's go back to a time when trying to work on code with other people was, and I'm not exaggerating, a complete and total nightmare.
Okay, picture this. It's 2007. You're a developer. You want to help out on an open source project. Well, get ready for a world of pain. You're stuck with these centralized systems like SVN, where a handful of gatekeepers basically hold all the power. If you want to suggest a change, you have to make this thing called a patch file, and then you literally have to email it to someone, just hoping they see it. All your work is just scattered everywhere. Mailing lists over here, bug trackers over there. It was so slow, so clunky, and honestly, it just made you want to give up.
Then, something big happens. In 2005, the guy who created Linux, Linus Torvalds, he gives the world Git. And technically, it was a marvel. It was distributed, super fast, super powerful. It totally solved the deep technical problems of version control. But there was a huge catch. For your average developer, it was just way too complex. You could say Git was this amazing new engine, but nobody had actually built a car around it yet. There was this massive gap between the power of the tool and anyone's ability to actually use it. And that's where the GitHub founders step in. See, they were developers too, and they were feeling this pain every day trying to contribute to projects like Ruby on Rails. They saw what Git could be, and they decided, you know what, we're going to build a user-friendly platform that's missing. It literally started as a weekend project. They launched it to some friends, and the response was just immediate and explosive. Their whole pitch was so simple and so brilliant, Git hosting no longer sucks.
And their killer feature, the thing that changed everything, was the pull request. I know it seems so obvious to us now, right? But back then, this was absolutely revolutionary. The pull request created a simple, social way for anyone from anywhere to suggest a change, talk about it right there next to the code, and then get it merged in. It tore down all the old gates. It democratized the whole process and basically invented the idea of social coding.
So yeah, that one single idea, it built an absolute empire. But fast forward to today, and as we're about to see, the very walls of that empire are creating a huge bottleneck for how modern teams actually build products.
The scale of GitHub today is it's hard to wrap your head around. We're talking over 100 million developers. And that's not just a vanity metric. That is the most powerful network effect in all of software. Think about it. Developers are on GitHub because that's where the code is. And the code is on GitHub because that's where the developers are. It's this gravitational pull that's pretty much impossible to escape.
And that network effect, it creates this incredible competitive moat. It's like a flywheel that just keeps spinning faster. So you have the developers, which creates ecosystem lock-in, right? Teams build their entire lives around tools like GitHub Actions. All of that work then generates the biggest collection of public code on the planet. And that massive data set gives them an insane advantage in AI, which, of course, powers their next huge product, GitHub Copilot. Each piece just makes the next one stronger. It's genius. And yeah, that AI advantage, it turns directly into cash. GitHub is a $2 billion business, and get this, a whopping 30% of that is already coming from Copilot. In just a couple of years, their AI assistant has become this monster revenue driver. It's already making more money than the entire company was worth when Microsoft bought it. That's not just growth, that's a fundamental shift in what GitHub is.
But this is exactly where the amazing success story starts to show its cracks. This is where we get to what we're calling the collaboration tax. Because GitHub is so perfectly tuned for developers, it's become its own island. Meanwhile, your product managers are on another island called Jira. Your designers are on an island called Figma. And your marketers are on Slack Island. And all that time wasted jumping between islands, all the miscommunication, all the, hey, what's the status on this? That's the tax. It's a hidden cost that every single team pays every single day.
And here's the craziest part, the central paradox. A tool like Copilot, which is amazing, actually makes this whole problem worse. Think about it. You're making developers hyper-efficient.
You've basically taken one station on the assembly line and cranked it up to supersonic speed. What happens? You get a massive pileup of inventory and chaos at every other station. The bottlenecks for design, for product, for marketing, they just get bigger.
So it all comes down to this really fundamental philosophical divide. GitHub is obsessed, absolutely obsessed with creating the perfect experience for the individual coder. But their biggest competitors, GitLab, Atlassian, they're selling a totally different story. They're trying to build these integrated platforms for the entire organization. And that right there is GitHub's strategic vulnerability. They're winning the hearts and minds of developers, but they might be losing the bigger war for the entire company's workflow.
So what's the move? How does GitHub defend its kingdom and push forward? Well, it can't just keep doing the same thing. It has to think bigger, way bigger. It has to evolve.
Okay, so here's the thesis, the big idea for their future. To lock in another decade of growth, GitHub has to make a huge leap. It needs to stop being just a place to store code and become the operating system for the entire product team. It has to stop being that isolated developer island and transform into the continent where everyone, product, design, engineering, works together in one place.
So what does that actually look like in practice? Well, let's dream a little. Imagine a new feature. Let's call it Mission Control. This would be a real-time dashboard for product leaders that finally answers that one burning question. What is engineering actually working on right now? No more begging for status updates in Slack. This would connect the big picture company goals directly to the code being written, giving leaders that top-level view they are absolutely desperate for.
All right, next up, designers. What about them? Let's imagine a feature called Canvas. And the killer part of this, visual diffing, right inside the pull request. Can you imagine a designer being able to see a perfect before and after of their design as the developer is coding it? I mean, that would fix one of the most painful, soul-crushing back and forths in the entire product development process. It would be a game changer.
And finally, let's bring it all home with AI. We'll call this one Clarity. Just picture an AI engine that automatically writes your technical release notes for you, then translates that geek speak into slick marketing copy for the website, and maybe it even scans all your customer support tickets and automatically creates new, ready-to-work-on issues for the engineers. It closes the entire loop, all the way from the customer's voice right back down to a line of code.
Now, this isn't just some pipe dream. You could actually map this out over 3 years. Year 1, foundation. You integrate deeply with the tools everyone's already using, like Jira and Figma. Don't fight them, join them. Year 2, expansion. You start building your own, better, native versions of these tools to start pulling those workflows onto your platform. And then, Year 3, intelligence. You leverage all that unified data you now have, from planning to design to code to feedback, and you use it to power predictive AI insights that none of your siloed competitors could ever dream of matching. Which, of course, leaves us with the billion-dollar question. Is this move from a code fortress to a true product OS, is it inevitable? Or is trying to take on established giants like Atlassian and Figma just a bridge too far, even for a monster like GitHub? I'm really curious to hear what you think. Drop your take in the comments below.